Hi there. Welcome to another episode of Startup Heroes and Heroines. In these episodes, we like to put the spotlight on professors all over the world who are using experiential learning, including simulations, to create the next generation of entrepreneurs. We have a great episode today with Erin Richards, so let's listen in.
So what led you kind of from your law degree to decide instead of working for a big law firm to open your own business in a completely different sector?
There were many things actually. Firstly, I studied my degree correspondence, so I started my first company while I was studying. So as I was studying, I was developing a very big interest in business, and I was starting to see that there was quite a big gap in the market for technology. And the other thing was that towards the end of my degree, I did go for an interview at a law firm. And I just remember sitting in that interview and thinking, I can come and work here for however many years and build someone else's dream, or I can try and build my own thing. So I kind of decided that I would go my own way.
And that's how most entrepreneurs usually start. So, which is amazing. And you have done that. You have built your own dream. So tell me, what are you focusing on right now?
The platform that I told you about that connects companies to students, that's my main focus. It's busy piloting in South Africa now in just over 30 schools. So we're quite excited about that. The pilot's going to last about 6 months, and then we'll launch it fully. And then I do have a little bit of spare time, about 3 hours a day. So during that, I do all my consulting work, and that focuses on how to use games in education, specifically how to use games to teach students about entrepreneurship in high school.
So what led you to be focused on students as opposed to people who have already graduated or already out there in the world?
I think South Africa is in a very unique position, and in terms of our entrepreneurs, and that is that we really don't have a lot of them, and we don't have a lot of support for them, and it's not seen as a worthwhile career option. It's kind of seen in South Africa as a last option. So in other words, if you get fired or if you can't find another job, then you become an entrepreneur. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is kind of just shift those dynamics. And I think in South Africa, in education, we need to focus on the younger students so that we can start creating an awareness and a realization within them that entrepreneurship is actually a viable career option.
Right. So do you feel like there's a lot less focus on it in South Africa than some other parts of the world where entrepreneurship is praised?
I think that the focus on it is increasing at the moment. So
do you think that the focus on entrepreneurship in South Africa is growing, or it should be growing a lot faster than it is?
Much bigger than it is at the moment. I think that we're starting to focus on it, but I mean as in the government's only started to kind of recognize the role of entrepreneurs in society. They've only started to kind of deregulate, and then we've got a lot of red tape and labour laws and restrictions in South Africa that make life very difficult for entrepreneurs. So I mean, in all sectors, from business to government, entrepreneurship has only recently started to be recognised. And I think that's quite different from the situation in Europe, at least from what I've heard. And I think as a developing economy, South Africa is in desperate need of entrepreneurs and small and medium enterprises. So I think that it's definitely a massive focal point for us, and that there's a very big opportunity over here.
Are you finding that those who start companies as entrepreneurs in South Africa, they are staying in the country to help boost the economy, or are they taking their business elsewhere?
I think it's a mix at the moment. A lot of it depends on where they can get funding from, and where they can find the technical skills to develop their products. And the problem is that a lot of times we have entrepreneurs with incredible ideas, but we don't have the skills locally to develop those ideas and to bring them into reality. And in that case, those entrepreneurs very often leave the country. What we do find is that they come back. So there's a trend that, in about 5 to 7 years, once they've developed their businesses, they sometimes do come back. But yeah, we don't really have exact statistics on that, but I can say it's pretty much a sort of 50-50 at the moment. And I think it also depends on what type of business you're trying to start. For example, if it's more kind of community-based, or a manufacturing service or something like that, then they'll probably stay locally. If they're looking at high-tech developments, then they would go internationally because there's a much bigger absorption rate for those products and a lot more support for their development.
Now, you also mentioned that you were doing some work in gamification. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Okay, so we have a massive company here, 2 of them actually, who focus on private education as opposed to public, and they are starting to look heavily at, how do we get the resources of private education out there to kids in maybe disadvantaged schools. And a possible solution that they've come up with is to start looking at using games. The only issue being that, obviously it's difficult to develop a game that covers an entire school curriculum per subject. So it's a case now that we're looking at trying to find out how best to develop those games. And we'd like to do it locally and not actually use international products, because there's quite a big difference between international curriculum and our curriculum. So it's a very difficult territory to navigate, but it's very exciting. And a lot of our schools have been using games for a very long time, but page-based or board game-based. So it's now just a question of taking those and putting them into a digital format.
Mm-hmm. And you're finding that the use of gamification, it's a fairly new thing, is assisting in the education and the entrepreneurship fields?
What we've found, I've done quite a bit of base practice studies internationally, and it seems that there are a lot of universities that use games they use games in their lectures as they're teaching. The problem is that it hasn't really been used in schools. Mm-hmm. And where it has been, it's used very, very selectively. So you can see that there's definite hesitation there. And I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that teachers don't feel comfortable using technology. So it's not really about can you develop a game, because of course you can develop a game, you can develop anything you want to, but the question is if your teachers are not tech savvy and they're not willing to try and to learn to use these different methods, that's where the trick comes in.
Now, Erin, can you think of, you don't have to mention names, but one case or one student or one person who you feel that your work has really made a difference in? And could you tell us about that? Someone who's gone on to succeed because of the work that you've done. It's hard.
Wow, it's very difficult for me to pick one person. What I've done is, especially that platform that we developed for the students that connect them to the companies. I do a lot of talks in schools on career orientation and choosing the right career for you. And after that, schools adopt the use of the platform, and I often go back later to see if there's some feedback. So I wouldn't say that there's one case, but in general, it's just very heartwarming to hear the children say that they're enjoying using the platform and that they've discovered careers that they didn't even know existed. And that to me is a very heartwarming thing. It means that we're getting our message across, and that maybe the work that we're doing will actually help these kids to make better decisions for themselves.
Which is amazing in itself. You don't have to pick one. That's okay. Before we go, is there a message, like a couple of sentences that you would like to leave young entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs with?
Wow, can I give you a book?
Yes.
I think that for me the most important lesson was that you really need to just have a different mindset and a different way of looking at the world. Where the majority of people will see problems, I think that entrepreneurs really have to develop that ability to see opportunity and to understand how to help their societies, because that I think is where entrepreneurship is going. That it's not just about innovating anymore. It's about innovating for your community, for a purpose. And I think that it's if you look hard enough, there's many opportunities that surround all of us on a daily basis. So I think my advice, or the line that I would leave, is just have an open mind and shift your perspectives. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Erin, for taking the time to talk to me today. And good luck in all your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, and the same to you. It was great to talk.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jasmine.
And don't forget to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and WordPress.